My guest this week is Social for Brokers owner Chris Target, and we're talking about social for brokers as well as gaining traction on social media and branding. Welcome to the Mortgage Broker Broadcast with me, Craig Skelton. Join me every week while developing your knowledge to help you build a successful mortgage broker business. This week's guest is fellow podcaster and owner of Social for Brokers, Chris Target. Mortgage brokers who go self-employed are always concerned about leads. And so in this week's podcast, Chris and I are discussing branding as well as gaining traction on social media. So welcome to the podcast, Chris. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks. Yourself?
Yeah, good, thank you. Good, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm just going to have a little bit of I love the audio clip on your LinkedIn about pronouncing your surname. I think that is absolutely, so if you've not listened to that, check Chris out on LinkedIn and just listen to click the little sound bite at the side of his name. And yeah, to be fair, we've not discussed that before. I've not said anything like that before, but I was just intrigued what that meant and what that did on your LinkedIn profile. So thanks for clearing that up, because I have to make sure that I have introduced you right rather than Chris Target, as you sort of said on there.
Do you know, the other way that people pronounce it is because my mum's Scottish, and the surname Target doesn't actually come from Scotland. It's from my dad, who's English. And what used to happen is at home, if you get any sales calls to the house, they'd hear a Scottish name and they'd automatically think it was Taggart. So as a kid, I was always brought with a Scottish mum, and everybody thought it was Taggart. So I have to make sure everyone knows it's Target with double T at the end. But yeah, it's not. If you listen to LinkedIn, I'll speak about this because it's really useful, I think. I saw a lady called Leah Turner on LinkedIn, who's huge on LinkedIn, and she talked about this little voice audio clip that you can add to your LinkedIn profile. You can actually create videos of your profile pictures now, which is pretty cool. But the voice one came from Leah Turner, showed us all how to do it. It's just something a bit different, I think.
It is definitely, it drew me to it straight away. So it is definitely something that's a little bit different, and absolutely what a great way. Oh, we've already got a hint and like a tip out there already, Chris, and we've just literally straight into the podcast. So thanks for that. So even before you've introduced yourself, we've got already a tip from Chris. So thanks for sharing that, mate. I really do appreciate it. What a great way to start. So
no worries at all.
Do you want to, obviously we've got a bit of background about your Scottish heritage and things like that now, but do you want to just explain who you are and your sort of journey so far?
Yeah, no. So started my working life in a golf shop and was in sales in golf. Obviously, being half Scottish, I had to take up golf, otherwise you were ostracised from the family, to be honest. Was in golf sales, went into a estate agency and did that for 6 years, and had a business in website design running alongside that. So after work on the evenings and at the weekends, would work on the digital marketing company and the websites. Then I started working I worked for Dixon's, big corporate company, and then I went to an independent company and really got chatting to the mortgage broker that was there. Started helping her with her social media, creating posts for her, because she just turned around and said, "Chris, I haven't got time. Would you mind creating some content?" And as we did it started just gaining a lot more traction in the local area. So it's in a town called Redditch, where I live close to. And people started to recognise her content, and it was all about being consistent. And Kate turned around to me and said, it's so much easier because you know property, because I've got the background in a estate agency. She didn't have to sit there and tell me how a mortgage worked, how a valuation worked, what people could do with remortgage money, how long it takes to go through. I knew all that. So Kate turned around and said, there's so many people that are out there that are very similar to me, that are mortgage brokers, that simply don't have the time, or sometimes don't want to run their social media channels. So I started speaking to a few mortgage brokers that were friends of Kate's through the years. And then decided last year, in March of last year, put on furlough by the estate agents that was at, and thought, right, it's now or never. There's no other time in the world that you're going to be paid to sit at home with furlough, because estate agents, obviously, we couldn't go in. So I thought, right, that's it. Did kind of like 7 days a week, 12 hours, launched the business, got in touch with as many people as possible. And yeah, that was Social for Brokers was born, really.
Fantastic. And what a great story in terms of using the furlough and the situation and the timing that you was in to not to feel sorry for yourself and not to think what's going to happen, what's going to happen with my job, where am I going, what we're doing, like with a lot of people do, and a lot of people did, is then you've taken that as an opportunity and thought, you know what, this is something sounds like you've always wanted to do. It was just great timing to launch it.
It was, and what I did is I didn't let myself get into a lull. So I think the worst thing I could have done was kind of the first week of furlough to turn around and say, right, I'm going to have a few rest days. I thought, no, I normally get up at 7 for work anyway. So let's just carry that on and let's just see where I could take this business. And 1 month was amazing. The second month got even bigger. And then by the time that we were asking us to go back into the office, it was quite empowering to turn around and say, no, actually, in the last 3 months, I've been working on this for 3, 4, 5 years, really. But the last 3 months have been intense and I've been able to do that. So it is nice to look back on it, but I've always been somebody that can't really laze about. I have to be doing something. That sounds so cliche, doesn't it? It sounds like one of these self-development books that you've always got to be on the go. But for me, I love design. I'm kind of in this bit of headspace at the minute that I feel like somebody's going to phone me and ask me to go back to work, because it doesn't feel like work for me to sit here and design. And anybody knows me through the years in a estate agency. I love and I'll get onto this, the colour aspects. I'm quite visual.
Wow, okay.
I like to see things. I like to design things and see something created out of a blank page. That's what I love doing.
Which is like, I think one thing that going straight into this podcast is like, I think mortgage brokers do struggle with. I've talked on numerous occasions about this, of the creative side of things. And I'm not a creative person at all. I think I've been in financial services far too long to be creative. And I think mortgage brokers who are experienced, you never get or very rarely get a creative mortgage broker, because it's either it was another podcast that with a guest I did several weeks ago where we were talking about a similar sort of thing, but it's from a mortgage broker point of view, you've got a client scenario and you're fixing the problem they have, and you're creating a solution around the problem they have. Whereas creating, you've not really, it's like a blank piece of paper. Where do you start? Like if you gave me a blank piece of paper and said, right, you need to create anything, like it could be design a garden or create a house or anything, that I'd be like, right.
Don't know where to start.
And that's the thing. And that's why I hear, and it's so great to get you on the podcast, Chris, because like you are about the creative side of things and helping brokers who struggle with that, because generally a lot of brokers I hear and I speak to do struggle with that creative side, because it's very much, well, this is what I earn, this is my debt, this is what I want to do, this is the house I want to buy, and you're being creative, but then at the same time you've still got tangible things to work with. So I said, right, I'm now going to, this is my because I'm very process driven. Mm-hmm. And this is why I'm not creative, because I'm very process driven with it. Whereas, like you said for yourself, I'm more and why I sort of hear about mortgage brokers is that they struggle with that blank canvas side of things. So it's a great thing that you do from that point of view of like looking at the creation and getting that mindset on with it, rather than I need a 2-year fix or a 5-year fixed.
That's it. But this is what I say to mortgage brokers that come to me. There's normally 2 reasons that mortgage brokers come to me. The first one is they haven't got the time to do it. Or the second one, they have the time, but they can't come up with the ideas. So if we address both of those points, the time aspect, for me to arrange my mortgage and to know which lender's going to be, for example, like I had a year's worth of books and needed to get a mortgage. So my mortgage broker said, right, Halifax, knew it off the top of her head. So for me, that I don't know that knowledge. So I say to people, well, instead of you trying to be creative and create all these ideas and come up with these ideas, you stick to what you're good at, being a mortgage broker, and you're obviously fantastic at it, and I'll stick to the creative side. You can't be amazing at everything. I couldn't do what you do as a mortgage broker. It would take me 5 hours to submit a case. And it would probably take the same amount of time as you to do what I do in terms of design. So that's why a lot of people say, yes, you should outsource a lot of your business to take away the parts. Admin's a perfect example of mortgage brokers. Instead of you doing all the admin and the submission and the chasing, you can just be focusing on mortgages. And that's the same what I do for social media for people, is I can go away and create the ideas, create the posts, help them build a brand online. They can focus on being a mortgage broker. So it's just a skill that I have of being creative, but you should then stick to being a skill of being a mortgage broker. Why spend all that time trying to think of ideas?
Exactly. It's just about being smart with your time and thinking about what is most cost effective in terms of the specialist in building the brand and social content and things like that. Then, well, you're gonna create that brand quicker than I would, rather than staring at a blank piece of paper. But like you say, on the flip side of that, I can get a decision in principle done in 5 minutes, where it might take you 5 hours. So it's certainly sort of working smarter, definitely.
And you talking about that blank piece of paper, you need to realise that there's so much influence and there's so many ideas out there just from your day-to-day industry. So I say to a lot of people, Instagram's obviously a big platform at the moment that people are taking on. I think Instagram stories is so powerful to show behind the scenes content. So what I'll say to my brokers is, right, I'll upload the polished content, because that's what I do. I upload normally 12 posts per month to social media channels of my client's choice. They'll be branded, they'll have all the content written, they'll have the disclaimers. But what I'll say is the Instagram stories, if you're uploading a case or you're showing somebody, say if you're doing an affordability calculator, one of the brokers that I work with, she uploaded a video of her just doing an example affordability calculator. This is how much they earn. This is how much debt theoretically they have. And this is what they do in terms of expenditure every month. There was 3 people that messaged her and said, that's really interesting. I need to speak to you about my mortgage. Now, to this lady, doing that affordability calculator, you might do 10 of those a day, and you think it's mundane and it's boring and nobody's going to be interested. Yet the 20 people that look at it, oh, that's quite interesting. I never realised that's what a mortgage broker actually does, to find out how much I can afford. So although you say it's a blank bit of paper, if you write down on that blank bit of paper the 100 tasks that you did today, you'll have at least 10 social media post ideas. Because I do appreciate some mortgage brokers might not have the ability to pay for somebody to do their social media. So if you wrote down all those 100 things that you do in a day, there'd be so many ideas on there that you could then go and repurpose into posts, or you could write an email to people, or you could upload into your Instagram stories. There's so much content out there. We just, as human beings, because we do the same thing every day, we think that automatically it's boring because you know how to do it. Yet to somebody else, it's mind-blowing and it's really interesting to somebody.
And like I said, they want to know behind the scenes. It is a good way of putting it, because that's what they want to know, what goes on behind the scenes. You've seen a first appointment, you go away and do your research and things like that. Well, what does that look like? How does that work? What goes on with that? And if you are sharing that experience with people that are interested in that, and from a mortgage point of view, looking at buying or selling or needing to remortgage right now, if you're sharing that sort of stuff, then like I said, they are more likely to be drawn to you, because you are sharing that information.
And you're just in front of them. If you put content out there, even if you think it's a rubbish bit of content, you've appeared on their phone. So they've either seen your branding or they've seen your name on Instagram stories. Another example, to give people a few tips in terms of content, like to say I had a year's worth of books and a mortgage broker helped me out. After that appointment, if that mortgage broker recorded a video and said, just had somebody in and they had years worth of books, and what we did, we put them with Halifax, because Halifax are really good at the moment because of this, in this type of scenario. There might be 100 people view that story. One person might be self-employed and they're thinking about doing their mortgage, and they might text you. They might say to you, look, I need to book in an appointment. That's one bit of business, just purely off just staring at your phone for 10 seconds and telling people, giving people a bit of an update. Another one, I'm really big on tea. I drink loads of tea, and I always upload, well, I'm trying to every morning, upload a video of me making a brew and trying to get Yorkshire Tea to sponsor me. That's my big thing at the moment. I won't stop until I get. But I get a lot of people messaging me, kind of just talking about, right, I much prefer coffee, or do you have any sugar in the tea? And it's something that removes that business element. They're getting to know me as a person. So if they see you on your phone talking about that mortgage that you help somebody with, they're seeing that you're a caring individual, that you know what you're doing, that you're talking about business, but not necessarily saying, come and use my business, you're adding value. So I've gone off on a bit of a tangent there, and I've spoken for a really long time about it, but just try and upload content that is a bit more behind the scenes that shows you as a person.
Chris, I've got no problem going off on a tangent, because that's what I do day in, day out, and everything that I do. So don't worry about that. I've got no problems going off on a tangent, because I think it's a good, like real good tip in terms of what you're talking to your advisors and the brokers that you work with, and how, like I say, it is about showing their personality, because that's something that's important to you as well. And we talked a little bit before about the sort of, because I go on about it all the time about showing your personality. That's something else that you believe in as well from a mortgage broker point of view.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've got to lean into. You're a person, you're a friend. You've got friends on social media. Utilize those, especially on Facebook. Or if you're asking for Google reviews, ask people for Google reviews that are your friends, because they'll want to promote your business. So use that network. Quickly text them. And I don't know if you ever used Broadcast List before, but this is one thing I'm huge on with my brokers. If you upload a post to social media and you think this could really help people, what's to say you can't message 20 of your friends on a broadcast list? So a broadcast list on WhatsApp is like a BCC email reeler. They'll get a message from you, but they're not all put in the same group. So to message 20 of your friends and turn around and say, do me a favor, share that post for me. Does two things. It starts a conversation with a friend that you might not have had a conversation with in a while, and they might turn around and say, yes, no problem, I also need to sort my mortgage. That's what I've seen with people. Or the second one is all of their friends see your posts. And I'm big on branding, that those posts need to be branded to your company. Don't just download the stock image off the internet and everybody will know what it is if you're a mortgage broker. It's grass, fake grass, with a wooden house on it. That's the standard go-to stock image. What you've got to do is get photos that are high quality, that show the emotion of, let's talk about the emotion of remortgaging. Yes, you want to release cash for them. What are they going to do with that cash? Is it a family holiday? Is it an extension? That's a big thing we're talking about at the moment. You can't get a builder for love and money because everybody's having home extensions. You've been around a friend, seen they've got a lovely kitchen. You come home and you're scrolling on social media. And instead of seeing a generic photo of that house and the mortgage broker says remortgage and release some cash, what if you saw a beautiful brand new kitchen with the family playing it or the daughter baking in the background? That appeals to the emotion more than it does actually the money that you can remove from the house. So if you've got that lovely image and says, ever thought of a dream kitchen, or are you dreaming about a new kitchen, catches their attention, because at that time it's the perfect timing for them. They read the post and say, with a remortgage, you could actually release some cash to get your dream kitchen. Now, they might not necessarily contact you straight off the back of that, but then the next week they see a customer review with all your branding on it again, and say your colour's orange, for example, they're seeing your orange, and they see 10 posts over the next 3 months with your orange in it, your company name, and maybe a little bit of a video about who you are. They're already bought into you. They might not have liked, comment, or shared on any of your posts, but they've bought into you as a person and as a brand, because John Smith's mortgages down the road haven't uploaded anything to social media. So who's going to win? That's why you've got to be consistent, especially with your branding on social media.
I think when you talk about branding, you've sort of said quite a few things there, Chris, in terms of branding. Do you want to just break it down a little bit and just there are snippets in there, you've talked about branding, but what does branding mean to you when you're talking to the brokers that you work with? What does branding actually mean?
So branding, it's all about being consistent with your branding. You want your branding to resonate with your values. So if you are a very friendly company and it's all about family values for you, to have a very corporate logo and a corporate appearance on social media just doesn't ring true. So you've got to make sure that that your branding, your logos obviously resonates with who you are as a person and the company that you want to run. And then secondly, it's all about, for me, branding is very much colour. So if you think, I always use the Sainsbury's carrier bag analogy, that if you see somebody walking down the street with an orange carrier bag, you know it's Sainsbury's. You don't even have to look at the logo. It's there. If anybody else tried to compete with the Sainsbury's carrier bag, there's no point, because say if B&Q released a bright orange carrier bag, you'd automatically think it was Sainsbury's. So there'd be no point in doing that. That's how strong I want to get people's brands in their local area. So we use, for example, there's a company called Second City Finance, and they do a lot of business in Stoke, and they're a bright orange. So whenever you see a bright orange post, social media post in Stoke, people automatically know it's Second City Finance. They might not even have to look at the actual content, but when they're scrolling, they know that that post is one of theirs. Then the next thing is to use imagery that resonates with him as a brand. So he's a guy on his own, he's hiring a couple of brokers, but it's all about, for him, it's all about the family and helping people. So with him, his imagery, we'll use more families playing, going off on holidays, that type of thing. Whereas I've got another client that's like a bigger company that are more corporate, and they want to go down kind of the buy-to-let route. We want to be seeking out professionals, specialist areas. Well, their imagery and their branding is going to be a lot more corporate and not as soft as Second City Finances would be. And that's one thing that you can fall into the trap of, is being too generic. You need to use, I've got some guys down south called Mewstone Mortgage Advice, and their imagery, one of their posts was a guy, a funny looking guy, just holding a fish. And it was kind of, you feel a bit like fish out of water when it comes to life insurance. But that image fitted them perfectly. Whereas if I'd use that for the corporate company, well, that's just completely off brand for who they are and the customers that they want to attract. So branding can be so many different things. To me, it's colour, and it's being consistent with the message that you're delivering to people.
And that's exactly what I've just written down there, Chris, because I think the bit that I've not thought about before is the value side, the values of you, who you are as a business as well, and who you are as a person. If it's like you say, being bespoke to who you are. So if it's then you're looking at that corporate with the fish image is not going to sit right with that large corporate image kind of thing. Whereas it is more about, there's two things and they sort of talked about, which other thing was about local as well. And I will come back to that in a second, because that's so colour consistently. When you talk about consistently, what do you like? Is that timing, or is that a certain amount of posts, certain times a day, or is it just being consistent with the colour, the branding and the values?
So both, really. The first one is to be consistent on your actual post. So use the same colours. If you can, use the same fonts, use the same type of imagery. And then in terms of consistent, because what we want to do is whenever anybody sees your post, we want them to automatically think of you. So if they see the same fonts, the same colours, I mean, if you think of NatWest, they don't ever change the type of post that they put out. Or, sorry, better example is Halifax. Halifax always use very family-orientated images. Now, if they uploaded a photo now of a block of like high-rise flats in London and start talking about the buy-to-let industry, the imagery would be completely different. They used a different font. It would throw you off completely. So that's the first one, to make sure that your colours, your fonts, try and make sure your logo's in the same place on every post as well. So people just become familiar with it, because as humans, we love habits. If we know at this time every day that Coronation Street's on, or I will listen to the 10-minute takeover on Radio 1, I know at 9 o'clock every morning it's going to be there. It makes you feel at ease because you're familiar with what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. Second thing is consistency in the amount of posts, and the timing of posts has become a bit less relevant because of the algorithms with Facebook. If you post at 6 o'clock every night, it doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to see it at that time. They might see it a day after, they might see it a few hours after. But be consistent, at least 3 posts per week. And this is what Facebook recommends. And I talk about Facebook because For me, Facebook is the best platform for a service-led business. Instagram is coming up very close second. Instagram is still leaning towards a product-based business. So I always talk about Facebook because it's always the number one platform for me, but at least 3 times a week. And that's what Facebook writes in, it's called Creator Studio, where you can schedule posts. It says do at least 3 posts per week.
Right, fine. So I think that's the other bit that people get stuck with is like, well, I've got these platforms. Do I do Twitter, Facebook, Insta, LinkedIn, TikTok? What, like, oh my God, like there's all these different things to be worried about. What do I do? Do I do this on this? What do I do on there? I think your message is like, if you've got the consistency in terms of the brand, the colouring and things like that resonate with you, then absolutely that's getting that consistent message out there. And 3 days a week is, I think, you should find that like brokers that do want to do it themselves. And I'm not an advocate of people do it themselves. I would rather get a specialist who knows what they're doing and how to make it work. But if people want to do it themselves, then 3 days a week, creating that content with that brand, with that imagery and thinking up of the content they want to do, then they might have the first 3, 6, 9. So they might get the first weeks covered. But I think they'll tend to struggle after that period of time thinking, what I'm going to do now. And then that's what disheartens me the most is when I see people starting to do stuff and then they're doing it and then they get busy and then they stop doing it. And it's like, why have you taken on time and effort to get this off the ground? You've got to keep putting air into it. You've got to keep it turning, because if you don't, it's just going to fall flat.
Definitely, you don't want to put all that work in, because what I see normally happens is people say, yeah, I'm going to give it a go to myself. That's fine, go and do it. But just make sure that after 3 weeks, 4 weeks, when you get busy off posting on social media, you then don't let that slip. But if we think of let's give 3 ideas that people could use every week. So your first one, you could use a customer testimonial. So if you go onto Canva, you could set up a template and you could put your own logo in there and then put in your review. You could copy and paste your review. That's the first one. Second one, maybe share some mortgage news. So instead of just going onto the Mortgage Strategy website or Property Reporter and finding an article and just posting it to your page, read it and give your views on it. So there might be an article on there about, let's talk 5% deposit mortgages. There might be an article on there. Well, how nice would it be for your audience to read about your thoughts on 5% mortgages? You could write in there, look, when they got pulled last year, I was absolutely gutted for a lot of my clients because I'd spoken to people that were ready to buy and they couldn't overnight. Everything was pulled. So it's nice to see them coming back in. There's loads of lenders. There's more lenders than I actually thought. Have a little read of this article about how many lenders there actually are coming to the market with 5%. That's your second post. And all that is typing. Your third post, if you're confident enough, take a photo of yourself, upload a video. If you're not confident in doing that, why not do a branded social media post about insurance, talking about insurance? Don't make it too heavy. Just kind of say, look, I've been helping lots of people over the last few weeks about with their life insurance. People didn't realise how affordable it actually was. So let's have a chat. That's 3 posts. And if you don't want to do the design work, that might take you all of 20, 30 minutes. So you could do a month's worth in a couple of hours, but that's just 3 little ideas for posts that people could do. What I do is I go to my clients with the ideas. So I'll turn around to them and say, right, we're going to do a post. Last week was National Dog Day. So we're going to do a post about that, try and get people to post photos of their dogs. We're then going to do a post about life insurance. What would you be able to leave to your family, or have you got everything in place ready? And then we're going to do, what was the other post? Like kind of you'll get the pick of the crop with us. So a really nice imagery of like a crop field because social media is very visual. You want people to be looking at nice images. So a high quality photo of that and something like you get the pick of the crop with us. People wouldn't necessarily think that's from a mortgage broker. And that's what I try and do with our content is, as people are scrolling through social media, we want to catch their eye. Mm-hmm. We want people to say, oh, actually, why is a mortgage broker talking about a fish out of water and a photo of a fish? Something that really catches somebody to stop them in their tracks. Even if they don't interact with that post, they've stopped. They've taken in your branding, they've taken in your colour, and they've taken in your logo. So subconsciously, you're in their mind. It's what the old fridge magnets used to do. You never looked at the company. My mum and dad used to stick up stuff on the fridge with the magnet. You'd walk past it every day. Then when you think, oh, I need someone to come and chop the tree out the back. Well, I've been looking at a tree surgeon's magnet for the last 2 years. Do you know what I mean? It's that kind of process that I think of.
It's just, like I say, it's just getting those. It goes back to, like I say, habit forming as well, isn't it? In terms of it, like in your mind, it's like it's just there in terms of your, like say, that tree surgeon, where it's just second nature. You don't even need to think about it. It's like, oh, I need that. It's just automatically a name will come out of your head because that's what you've been sort of seeing. And I think my point on habit forming was even going back to what you said before, like one of the first things that you said on the podcast was, and I wrote this down, was you was used to getting out of bed at 7 o'clock in the morning. So you continue to do that because that was your habit. So, because we are creatures of habit, and that's what, so if you took the time to think, right, that is 7 o'clock. So I think if you're not necessarily about the time now, but if you're making that time in your working week to put some time aside to look at your social media and look at your content, or sat with working with you, thinking about my meeting with Chris is every single, if you have a monthly meeting or whatever, or like whatever it is, it's like, if it happens, it's like the businesses, they're part of that I work with, the meetings happen at the same time every week or every month, and they just happen. So then it's just then, like I say, habit forming. So then this is just how you run your business, and then it's just structured from a business point of view as well. And it's more likely to happen that you will do it rather than fitting in a client wants to see at 10 o'clock. Well, can you do 11? Because I've got a meeting with Chris, or I'm doing this at 10. It's more likely to happen. Or if you're not that structured, like, yeah, I'll see that client at 10, and then at 11 o'clock, you'll find something else to do because it's not habit forming in terms of the way that you are. So,
and I think it allows you, and this is going completely off social media, it allows you to release some of that mental capacity to actually focus on what you've got. Because if anyone's like me, they're thinking, oh, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, I've got to do this social media post. Whereas if you book out an hour every week on a Friday afternoon to do it, you don't really have to think about your social media for the rest of the week. Well, the social media post creation, because you know that you're doing it on a Friday. Like for me, I always do podcast recordings on a Tuesday. So in my head, I know on a Tuesday, I'm sitting down, I'm doing this every Tuesday. If it was all over the week, I'd be thinking, oh, I've got to write the questions for the podcast. I've got to make sure I'm ready for it. Whereas I know Tuesday morning, bang, right, we get everything written out and we've got it in the afternoon. And that then allows me for the rest of the week, I'm not using any mental capacity to worry about that. It's happening. One thing I was going to say about the social media is, yes, you can plan time to do an hour a week and create the posts, but try and upload some real-time stuff. And the reason I say this is it might be a photo of the dog at the desk, you're working from home, or a cup of tea. Perfect example. Again, going back to the tea, always talk about tea. I upload the photos because what happens then is if I speak to a new client, it's something that we can speak about straight away. It's something that's not business, and it breaks down those barriers. It's a friend finder, essentially. Perfect story of this, and I tell this on all the podcasts I go on to, is got a friend called Ben Moore, who is an estate agent up north, because I'm obviously in Birmingham, up north way. And he uploads pretty much everything to social media. He talks about the coffee that he likes, the chocolate bars that he likes, what he does with the kids at the weekend, that type of thing. And he went into a valuation of a house, walked in, and there was a coffee with 2 sugars, and I think it was a Mars bar, one of his favourite chocolate bars. And he said, how did you know? And she said, well, I've been following you for 6 months on social media. Well, he could have just got the contract out there and then and got it signed, because he's already won that business because she's bought into him. And this is, people think the photo of the dog or the photo of the cup of tea or a stupid selfie, they think it's stupid, but no, it's doing so much more for you than you think. Think of your social media as a billboard. Yes, you do get some analytics of how many people see it, but when people pass that billboard, they're taking that information in, even if they're not phoning you off the billboard or contacting you off the billboard, they're still taking your brand and your message and who you are in. So this lady, he said she'd never interacted with any of my social media posts, yet she signed the contract. She was one of my clients then. And that's such a great feeling to think that, don't ever think that you're doing anything in vain on social media. One post might blow up and might have loads of likes and loads of shares and loads of comments. The other one might not get one, but that doesn't mean that that post hasn't helped build your business.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a bit passionate about that then, but that's
no, Chris, I'm not. I don't probably be passionate about it because it is totally relevant, because I hear that quite a lot. Whether it's social media or even like Google ads or wherever the case may be, it's like, oh, it doesn't work. I've posted 3 times this week and not one person's rang me, so I'm not doing that. It doesn't work. I'm not doing that anymore. And it's just trying to educate these people. Like, clearly you're passionate about it, so you will educate them about, no, it's just getting that content out there, because when they do need you, they're more likely to call you than they are 3 other mortgage brokers, because they, like you said, that I'm sure that lady with the Mars bar, the 2 sugars, didn't ask any other estate agent out to value the house. Like you said, you might as well walk through the door and say, sign that contract. She wasn't going to haggle over the price, obviously within reason. She wasn't going to, because she'd already bought into all that. And I think that's where people forget sometimes, because they want, we're a culture of instant, aren't we? That's it. We want everything today, now. And so if I'm doing this post, well, I expect 10 people to like it. I expect then a call about it. Well, it's not about that. It's about, it's just getting people used to seeing you and your personality and who you are. And I was interested because I get various people thoughts on personalities, not so much as from a business point of view, but from a personalities, as in, is it okay to post about my dog? And people have very different viewpoints. It depends on who I speak to. Like some people like say, yeah, that's okay, but you 1 in 20 or 1 in 10 or 1 in 3, and everybody has different viewpoints on it. And I think going back to it, that the whole thing of what you're doing when I'm looking at this is, if you're doing your videos and doing your posts and things like that, my way of looking at it will be, all you're doing is building trust with that client. All you're doing is building trust with that individual that at some stage in the future will need you and your help. So if you can sort of continue to work on that, doing this day in, day out, week in, week out, and creating content and putting that out there, then you're just building trust up. That's all you're doing, is just trying to build trust up with those people that then they know, like that lady trusted him. Like, she trusted him to put his house on the market. She got him a Mars bar and tea with 2 sugars or coffee 2 sugar, whatever it was. So she trusted him already. Like, it didn't matter. She knew he was the person that she was going to work with and trust to sell her house. That was it. There was no any other sort of discussions to be had.
That's exactly how we live our lives. We go and buy Coca-Cola instead of a new brand of Coca-Cola because we trust that brand. Do you know what I mean? You go to Sainsbury's all the time instead of the new corner shop that's open, because you trust in the brand. You know what you're going to get. Well, that's the same. That's what that woman was. Yes, I know exactly what I'm going to get with Ben, because I've seen him on social media for the last 6 months. I know he's a nice guy. I trust him. That's the stage you want to get to, that when they phone you up, they feel like they know you already. Before they walk through that door or get on their Zoom call for their mortgage appointment, they know who you are. And it does take time. Please don't think what I'm speaking about here is a quick fix, because it's not. I always say to my clients, it's 3 to 6 months before we start really seeing any results. Okay, and it all depends on where you share that content and where you get that content out to, and how proactive you are in getting people to like your Facebook page. Okay, it's 3 to 6 months. If you're looking for something a bit more of a quick fix, something like Google Ads. I interviewed somebody who is David Miles, who's like an expert. He's called the PPC machine. I think he's chatted to you on.
I've done various things with David. I was on one of his sessions, like I was on one of his Facebook lives the other day. So yeah, I've got a lot of time for David. Yeah,
great guy, knows Google Ads inside out. I think he said he'd been doing it like 18 years or something. So if you want the quick fix, go and listen to the one with David Miles on here, or on my podcast. I've interviewed him. He knows so much about it, and you will get leads from that. But what we're talking about here, and what I'm talking about, is how to build that authority and how to build that trust in your local area. You want to be the go-to mortgage broker. So much so that if anybody else tries and opens a new mortgage brokerage in your town, or tries to open a brokerage with your particular colour, you want to own that branding and own that colour, so nobody else can touch it. That's how strong you want to be in your local area. And you do that by, yes, using somebody like myself to create the polished content. I always liken myself to somebody. A mortgage broker looks as if they've got an in-house marketing team because everything's consistent. It's consistent to their voice. It's consistent in terms of colours and branding and logos. But actually, it's just me doing it from afar. So I can do the polished content and advertise your services, but you need to get out there and tell people what's happening in the real world, what's happening with rates at the minute. We've got I know rates is a touchy subject depending on the network, but talking about that rates are the lowest that we've seen them in years. So if you have got your mortgage due up, give us a call, give us the challenge. That kind of video would resonate, would give people a lot more of an insight into you than just you talking about what's going on, do you know what I mean, writing down what's going on in the market or not sharing anything at all.
Are you a fan of videos then, Chris? Are you a fan of, rather than writing or pictures, is your sort of top one video? Or
I'm very big. I prefer doing visuals because that's obviously what I do, and that's what I tell people to do because it's easy to use the brand. Because on a video, I mean, here's perfect because I've got it behind me and people can see my branding. But normally, if you're out in the street, you can't really get your branding onto videos. So you need that mix. Videos, though, don't think they have to be polished. Don't think that they have to be perfect, and you have to have a studio light. The best videos I ever did before was walking down the road in my local area just with my camera out. And the great thing is, if you are a mortgage broker in a local area and you want to build your local brand, if you're walking through a particular park doing a video, people, again, are going to be familiar with that backdrop of where you're walking because it's the local area. And again, it makes them a lot more familiar with you. So it's all about just making the customer feel comfortable whilst looking at your content.
Excellent. I think I totally understand. I 100% agree with what you're talking about, Chris. I think it is about local personality, and I think people get too hung up. I get too hung up on the polished look and the things like that. But I think the best ones are like when you are just on your iPhone or other phones are available. But if you're like, I'm just an Apple person, so I think if you're on your iPhone and you can just quickly record walking down the street, and you can obviously with various things, editing stuff is easy to do and things like that. So I think it just is. Do you not find it's just like breaking the back of it? Well, I tend to find that once somebody's done it, like it just takes ever for somebody to do it, and then once they've done their own video once, you can't show them up. Then they seem to be sort of like constantly on the videos.
100. It is. It's that first. It's doing it the first time, but then I think it's great as well. There's so many resources out there to make you feel confident and give you tips. Like, for example, Ash Borland, he's huge on video, and he gives away so much content, so much free content to people about how to be confident on video. So go and have a look at some of Ash Borland's stuff about how to do video properly, because I don't know the ins and outs of it. All I know is from experience, is being personal on videos, and don't worry about if they're not polished. You look at TikTok, perfect example. Hardly any of the videos on there are polished, yet you've got people that have got thousands and thousands of followers because they're real and they're genuine. They're not all polished videos, and that platform's exploded.
No, exactly. And I think that's, you can get too hung up on that and give and a reason not to do it rather than a reason to do it, and just go, you know what, let's just get out of my comfort zone and get on with this and see how it works out. And then once you've done one, like you said, TikTok's not polished, and look at I see brokers on there all the time, and more and more brokers go onto that platform. So that's great to see that. I've not done any TikTok videos yet, and I don't think I ever will, but that's that each to their own. You never know. But
listen to this. In a year's time, we'll do this again, and Craig Skelton will be like this TikTok megastar, been interviewed by BBC News about how he launched a mortgage business. But there are people out there. I'm speaking to Joe Bartley, the home buyer coach. He's huge on TikTok. I'm interviewing him for the podcast this afternoon. So it'll be interesting to speak to him and say, look, your videos aren't polished, but how do you feel about that? He'll probably say, well, it's absolutely fine because I've got so many followers and getting a lot of business from it. Yeah,
because again, the unpolished bit shows your personality. The outtakes and behind the scenes sort of show your personality. Like when like I do like videos of helping brokers out, answering their questions, and just grass out. The outtakes are far longer than the actual polished article that goes out there. So, but it's like, but that's just where that I do it. But like I said, I would have no problem sharing the outtakes. I just think it'd be boring for people. But from a broker's point of view, from a client's point of view, they will be interested to sort of see that again, of more about your personality. That's who you are and what you're about. So
you need that mix of good content that's informative to people, content calling to action to say, look, we can help you with your first time buyer's home. We can help you alongside the personal stuff and the funny stuff. You need that constant mix, because if the only thing we did was upload photos of our dogs, you wouldn't get any business. People don't know who you actually are. So you need that mix of, yes, I can help you with this, but also look at behind the scenes stuff, and also look at my video about the local area that I love, and then see a post about my dog, and then we'll talk about life insurance. And it's just having that mix of stuff, and that doesn't have to be premeditated. The content that I create about services and what you as a mortgage broker can do for your clients, that should be the stuff that's scheduled, because it's not really time sensitive. But then if something happens during the day, take a quick snap of it and upload it, or you've had a thought, or somebody's released a new product that you think could be really useful for NHS staff, get that out there. Try and if you can do it. I know every mortgage broker under the sun at the minute can't get up for paperwork. Do you know what I mean? They're just absolutely heaving. But if you can do it, it will start to build that personal brand online.
And so we flew straight into the podcast, Chris, and we've got loads of like content there and like some really sort of big hints, tips. And we talked a little bit about Social for Brokers and why you created and stuff like that. But I'm a mortgage broker sat here now thinking, right, I bought into Chris. I like clearly knows what he's talking about. I've listened to a few of his podcasts and how do people work with yourself? If I'm a broker point of view, how is it sort of just explain the process a little bit from how do I work with social brokers and what you do for the brokers?
So I offer quite a few different services, but the one I'll talk about is social media. So simply put, I create 12 social media posts per month for clients, and they'll be branded with your font, colours, be very similar to your website, because we want that brand continuity, that if somebody sees your social media post and then navigates to your website, they're not poles apart. I want them to look as similar as possible, okay? So I will create 12 posts a month for them. What I normally do is I'll come to somebody and say, right, for the next 2 weeks, this is the type of content I'm thinking. So we'll do a post about life insurance, because there was some new stats released by Aviva in their kind of income protection PDF that they sent out to everybody. Then we'll do a post about getting first-time buyers on the ladder. So are you sick of trying to sneak in the house at 2 a.m. when your mum and dad are in bed? Let's do a post about getting your own place. Then we might do a post about renters. Right, are you fed up of paying rent to your landlord? Let's try and get you on the property ladder. Then we'll do a customer review. And then a couple of others will say there's National Dog Day coming up, so something to break up the business content. And then we'll do a post about income protection. What I then do, my clients then come back to me and say, Chris, great ideas, but can we just drop the one about income protection? Because I want to do a post about how I can help NHS staff. That's fine. I'll go away and create the posts. So I'll create the actual image that's branded, it's on their colour, it's on point for them. I'll write the content for them with their disclaimers that have been agreed by their network. So obviously every different network has different disclaimers. And then I send them a screenshot, and it's then up to them. They can say to me, yes, or can we slightly change this wording? And they then sign them off and say that the disclaimers are okay, good to go. So that might mean emailing them to the compliance department, or they might be able to self-certify if they're DA. What I'll then do is I'll schedule it to their social media channels for them. So they don't have to upload them. They don't have to think about what to write. They don't have to think about what to create. They don't have to think about using Canva. I do it all for them. They then get scheduled to their social media channels, and they don't have to worry about it whatsoever. Then they know that there's 3 posts going out this week. So if you've got a really busy week on a Monday morning, you don't want to be thinking about social media posts. Chris has got it. He's uploaded 3 for me. The week after, you might be quieter. So you might think, I could upload a few posts in between what Chris is posting. So it removes that mental capacity. They're not thinking about what's going out on social media. They know I've got them. They know that I'm looking after everything for them. So that's the main service that I help people with. Take their social media off them. It's then for them to really go out and push it if they want to. They can share it to local groups. They can get friends to share it. But they know, peace of mind, 3 posts are going out that look really sharp, really professional without them having to think about it.
Cool. And that, I think that sort of, the simplicity of that, I know it's not simple from your point of view, but the simplicity of knowing that you've got it covered, it's in your hands, they know what it's more likely to happen, getting the content out there with the branding, consistency, with the values, all the things you've talked about in the podcast, they know that working with you, that's going to be going out there week in, week out. So they can be worrying about mortgage applications and progressing cases and other things that they're wanting to do, and they know that they're working with you. So perfect. No, Chris, I so totally get how you work with the brokers and what you're offering, is in proposition point of view, and the idea of working with someone like yourself that sort of then just takes out the friction and just makes it more likely to happen. I see all the benefits of why that should be doing. So we'll get obviously copied in on when we launch this podcast, we'll get your social links on there. We'll get links to social brokers and you and stuff like that. So I'm guessing just people reach out if I'm thinking of doing it, just reach out to you on social media. Is that like LinkedIn, that kind of thing?
Definitely, yeah. I'm huge on LinkedIn. I'm a massive believer in LinkedIn, on Instagram and Facebook as well. So I'm on Instagram doing a lot of Instagram stories. Couple of things that people might find useful. The first thing is if you find it hard to schedule your posts, there's 2 things that you can do, and this is just a bit of a free resource for everybody. First one, you can use Facebook scheduling tool, very easy to use. So you could set them up on a Monday morning to go for the following week, or you can use something called buffer.com, and that allows you to schedule 10 posts over 3 channels per week. So you could post the same thing to Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn if you wanted to, and that will go automatically for you. So definitely check out Buffer. The second thing is I always use Canva for my designs. It's easier to use than something like Photoshop, those type of things. I did a training video with David Miles. So what I'll do is I'll send you over the link to the YouTube video, and that's an hour of free Canva training. So it'll show people how to create Canva posts with their brand and their company on there.
Perfect. And by doing that, Chris, you're showing to the listener, like people that listen to the podcast, you're doing exactly what you're encouraging your brokers to do, which is giving free content, which then makes it's the whole point of what you do. So, so you're not just talking about it, you're actually delivering that kind of thing as well. So, but yeah, share. We'll get the link shared to the free content, and I think Canva is one thing that is quite alien to some of the brokers, but it is a great tool to use, and it is a great it does help make, again, in terms of getting content, it just makes things a little bit more easier to create. So definitely
a great tool.
Anything, I appreciate time. We've gone on for such a long time, Chris. Anything else that we've not talked about or missed? And like I said, we will get you back on the podcast in down the future in terms of a few of the things we want to talk about. But anything else we've not picked up on today about sort of social media and that side of things?
No, I think I'm very consistent with the message that I deliver, that it's all about people knowing your brand locally. Don't try and say we're going to do it nationally, we're going to get loads of customers, because it's so hard to do that on social media. You need a huge budget. Focus on your village to start with. Try and get local people to know who you are, know your colours, know your branding, then branch out from there. But just be consistent with the way that you post and the voice that you post on social media as well.
Fantastic. On that tip, we will end it there. So thanks ever so much for your time, Chris. I know you're so busy and you've got your own podcasting to worry about, and obviously all the brokers you work with. So I really do appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me on. It's great to be on it. It's nice to be the other side of the microphone. It's great to talk about, because I speak to so many new clients over the phone saying exactly what I'm saying now. So it's great to hit that larger audience to try and share some of the knowledge that I've picked up over the last few years.
Definitely. And I think what comes across clear, Chris, is your knowledge, absolutely. But then again, also your personality and your honesty and what you are and your values, which again is important for brokers to work with somebody that they know and trust as much as they possibly can. I think, and again, honesty, and I think that your values came across loud and clear. So I really do appreciate that as well.
That's great. Thank you again, Craig.
Thank you.